Hello Canada, welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Tagai. Well, we're going to go over a few things here today. Of course, the presser that Carney just held, this man is completely evil. He just lies through his teeth, and finally some truths are coming out. We're just going to kind of wheel through that. Then we're also going to do Danielle Smith's presser. This woman should be the Prime Minister of Canada. What she has done to try and keep this nation together under the amazing stress that her own citizens within her province are putting on her for secession. She doesn't get enough credit. And I even had like a person comment here how he's like, well, she's the reason a lot of people aren't voting for Pierre. I think maybe you should try and get those people to watch more of like my episodes and other real media who are actually showing the entirety of what she says instead of these sound bites and video clips and misrepresentation that legacy media does. Legacy media has been slandering Alberta for generations. It's in their best interest because, well, they get funded by Eastern politicians. And when they're elected federally, for some reason, it seems like all of their friends are always in the media. And then later, those same media personnel end up going into politics. Not to say that conservatives haven't done this as well, because they have, but the liberals, off the scales, the corruption that they do. And if we have some time, we're going to deal on a couple other things. Hopefully we have some time. So let's just get started with Mr. Evil himself. This guy is absolutely scary. And a couple truths that came out. Let's hear it.
Okay. Morning. Next question. Good morning, Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News. It appears the involvement of the RCMP forced candidate Paul Chiang to bow out of the race. Meanwhile, the Conservatives just removed their problematic candidate in Windsor within an hour of learning of issues of this individual. Why didn't you do the same with Chiang? And was this a teachable moment for you?
Oh, boom! Great question. And yes, the Conservatives have actually released two MPs. The one was on a podcast, and it was a humor podcast. It was like comic. It was all done in satire, and he was suggesting that he liked the medieval kind of laws. He was pro capital punishment, which really we're doing on a mass scale with the MAID program, and we're probably going to end up doing an episode on the MAID. That is, I believe in full freedom. Period. Cut. Take it to print. But the way that they're implementing it and the way that they're actually, what they're using, you would be surprised. It's not a painful death. Now, let's just listen to Mr. Mark Carney. And yeah, this guy's such a snake.
Mr. Chiang made his resignation, offered his resignation last night. I accepted it. As I said yesterday, his comments were deeply troubling and regrettable. We will move on with looking for a new candidate for Markham, and I'll leave it at that. En français.
How embarrassing is that, eh? How embarrassing is that? So the best part is not only did he talk to print media, but now a video just came out of him saying, like, this is sick, people. This guy should be charged, and I have been confirmed that I was right. There are 3 different charges they can hit him with. Let's just hope the cops actually do their job. These RCMP, they got to get on this stuff. This is literally the voice of China. When people can use another country to put fear of God in its citizens to sway votes, this is the most anti-Canadian, anti-democratic thing you could possibly do. And not just that, but it's literally speaking for the Chinese government. Like, you can't forgive this. You just can't forgive this. We got to clean this up. Listen to what this guy says. What a complete puke.
The other person that's running most probably is, the Chinese community knows Zhou Te, Zhang Jing, right? He is looking for the nomination. The Chinese media knows him. He was in the media business in Hong Kong, and here in Canada, he's a radio host, or I don't know, for Singtel Media or Fairchild, he was a media person. So that's all he did all his life. But also right now, he is wanted by the Chinese government, and there's a $1 million reward on his head. So they want, if you guys want to pick him up and take him to the Chinese consulate, you make him $1 million. I'm just joking, but there is a arrest warrant out for him from the government of China, and there is a reward for him. But apart from that, I can't say more than that. Right?
Now, the saddest part about this is that the whole speech is slanderous. Like, this is all this guy's ever done. So all he's ever done is fight for the democracy within Hong Kong and then flee to Canada to keep fighting for democracy, not only here in Canada, but to learn from what's going on in Hong Kong. And he makes it sound like this is a bad resume. This guy's been a cop for 25 plus years, 28 years. He is nothing compared to what Tao is, as far as I'm concerned. Because if he's saying this out of his lips and he's using this as power, what did he do the whole time he was working as a officer? That scares the bejesus out of me, and it should scare the bejesus out of you. We're going to move on. Listen carefully. The Canada-China Business Council appointed a person of interest to CSIS to its board of directors. Wei Chengyai, I have on my list, has been recognized by Xi Jinping in China for his overseas work. He also launched Han Dong's campaign. This is the guy that got booted out of the Liberal Party. Well, stepped down, booted. For the two Michaels, which if you watch my previous episode, I explained that kind of well. Literally, they were using these two hostages in China as a way to garner popularity and gain votes because they were plummeting in the polls. The whole Liberal Party is a disgrace to everything that is Canadian. Period, cut and dry. The council is run by Mark Carney's top donors. Now, here's his top donors. Olivier Desmarius, chair of the Canada-China Business Council. Desmarius is also on my list. He's been on my list for over a decade, the entire family. There's a lot to do with the Power Corp and some other stuff. I'll probably be doing a special on that. These people have altered and played internal interference within our elections since Pierre Sr. got in, Trudeau Sr. got in. They were the very first to infiltrate and literally take over the media. And these are one of the families that whenever I say Laurentian elite, the evil Laurentian elite, these are the people. Power Corp. They're Brookfield, Canadian style. And like I said, they put Trudeau Sr. into power, who was the first major socialist that we are still suffering his policies today. We've got to drop every single thing that man has done. Obviously, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, everybody's like, oh, see, that Trudeau did that. That is one of the worst documents ever. All it did was make it look as though he gave Canadians all of this freedom. But if you actually read it carefully, and you can tell by how the Emergency Act was used and how he broke every single rule, and how their censorship that they're trying to introduce and already have passed some censorship laws, they have these roundabouts, these little loopholes in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. This was never designed for the citizens. This was designed for government tyranny, government power. We need to remove it and revamp it. And yes, I'm sorry to say so, but we need to base it more on the American system. Freedom of speech. Period. No government, no can say what is freedom of expression. No. Freedom of speech. Period. That's got to be passed. We need that rule. And a lot more. Let's move on. This is a good one. Listen very carefully.
The momentum behind this agenda is now tremendous, and it'll be important that China is center stage to shape this new global, sustainable financial system.
Right from the horse's lips. I have many videos where I have shown this before on earlier episodes. I'm just giving you a reminder on this one. This guy is in cahoots with China. His company is heavily invested in China, and he personally is heavily invested in China. This is why he raced to hide his books before it was necessary for him to actually go in and have Parliament go over his documents to see if there is anything that can be held outside influence in his decisions as being the leader of Canada. This guy is Trudeau on steroids. He literally scares the bejesus out of me. From all the research I've done, and I urge you to watch previous episodes, from what I have exposed of this man, he is evil incarnate. He will literally take all of the citizens' rights. He will put us in more debt than we are now. All for power and wealth. These people must be stopped and exposed for who they are, which is slowly rolling out down in the States thanks to Democrat and Republican senators who have come together to try and expose GFANS and other literal climate communist takeovers of our free countries. Back to Mr. Carney, the liar himself.
How do you reconcile keeping Bill C-69 with your plans to build infrastructure in Canada? Do you plan to repeal Bill C-69?
We do not plan to repeal Bill 69, to answer your question directly. What we have said and made very clear 10 days ago, formally with the First Minister's meeting, is that we will move for projects of national interest to remove duplication in terms of environmental assessments and other approvals, and we will follow, as the federal government, the principle of one project, one approval to move forward from that. So what's essential is to work at this time of crisis to come together as a nation, all levels of government, to focus on those projects that are going to make material differences to our country, to Canadian workers, and to our future, and work closely together. And the federal government is looking to lead with that by saying we will accept provincial environmental assessments to move forward with that for example, clean energy projects or conventional energy projects. There are many others that could be there. Last point, which in many respects is the first point, we will always ensure that these projects move forward in partnership with First Nations.
Prochaine question. Oui, bonjour, monsieur.
Now, not a week ago, just over a week ago, he was in with Daniel Smith saying, nope, he's going to look into repealing C-69, changing it, going back to a central policy of environment, especially since Alberta was literally implementing like carbon capture and environmental policies in before the Liberals even took power. Alberta and Saskatchewan are so far ahead on their own with their environmental policies that federally they can't catch up. But federally, it's not really about the environment. It's about the green agenda. It's about the corporations that are, like right now, bots. I was under attack yesterday. I spent all day cleaning up my computer. I found lots of latched on material. A lot of it I had to send in. This is all Chinese and liberal interference. Big dollars. These people have, like China has got bot farms that are attacking us to put liberals in power. All the polls, all of them, are all wrong. I can guarantee you that they are wrong. Now, I'm not saying that the Poilievre hasn't lost some support. I would assume that maybe he did because of mainstream brainwashing. But for the most part, if you take a look at the rallies, there's no comparison. There is no comparison. You are seeing it. Poilievre is averaging 3,000 to 7,000 everywhere he goes. He's breaking records. That's from, PEI, Newfoundland, Winnipeg, BC, all the places that are saying they're going to be completely red. I don't believe it. And I talk to lots of people. I try to reply to every single comment on every social media platform I am on. I literally spend hours upon hours of a day going through it to make sure I communicate with them. And from what I'm hearing, other than a few, we'll call them undecided voters, which are usually people who vote liberal for the most part, but flip to conservative when extremes happen. The swing voter. They're the only ones right now that are kind of on the fence. And of course, they're getting a lot of propaganda from hate towards Danielle Smith for what she's doing, which you're going to hear right from Danielle Smith's mouth. This woman should be our future prime minister. We're going to scroll ahead a little bit further. Here's some more verbal diarrhea from Mr. Mark Carney.
Hi, Mr. Carney. It's Stuart Thompson from the National Post. On Friday, the Post published a piece revealing 10 instances of plagiarism in your doctoral thesis. Your party responded by attacking the academic who was quoted in the piece. Some of your surrogates mentioned pulling media subsidies because they didn't like the piece. First of all, did you plagiarize? And is this a demeanor we can expect from a Carney government? Will you attack the media when you don't like the work we do?
Thank you for your question. I'm pleased.
Now that question was very well done because he boots out media. These guys are the worst. Before he was even prime minister, he had RCMP detail paid for by the taxpayers, us, you and me, in order to keep out media he didn't like. So I like the way that he questioned this. Now, personally, the whole plagiarism thing, I think is I actually think it's a ploy to try and get people's attention off of all of the other major issues that this guy carries. This guy is, like I said, evil incarnate. I swear to you, from what I've read, and if you watch the previous episodes, and what I know that I'm going to be exposing more, once the line date is set, and MPs literally, when they remove them, it's over. There's kind of a set date where if the MPs start walking out, you can't replace that MP. So I'm waiting for that. And I know a lot of other media outlets are as well, because we have so much on the Liberal Party. These people are so corrupt. But the plagiarism actually is a big thing. It's amazing how around the world, how many professors are speaking up. It's like 90% to 10%. 90% of them are saying, yes, there's a no-brainer. That's definitely plagiarism. It's plagiarism without a doubt. But what do you expect from this guy, right? What do you expect? He's a bloody banker.
That there's such interest in my doctoral thesis. It's sort of languished on the shelf for over 3 decades. I think.
I'm not even gonna listen to this. He's full of crap. I got other things I would rather show. I do want to show this clip. I thought this was hilarious. Just somebody who kind of reworded it. It's quite funny. Take a listen. This is Mark Carney.
Get out of here. Out. Out.
Who are you yelling at?
The kids. This is my private rink.
Don't you hate that damn peasants?
Are you a rich man?
Yeah, but I pretend I like everyone else.
But you look like a peasant.
Yeah, so?
Do you remember offshore accounts?
The secret bank ones?
How many do you have?
Oh, Cayman and Swiss?
Bahamas.
Panama.
Luxembourg.
Monaco.
What's the best way to dodge taxes?
Shell companies, obviously.
What are the 2 seasons for the elites?
Davos and vacation.
Wow, you really are rich.
Yeah, but let me ask you, Mr. Central Banker, will the peasants ever get ahead?
They will always be peasants.
All right, offshore up.
Offshore up.
Canada's strong. They put out some great stuff. It's quite funny. Okay, this is going to be a little bit lengthy. I want you to listen carefully to it. Listen to what she says. This woman is amazing. Absolutely amazing. One of the best politicians I think I have ever had the privilege of following, listening, and studying. She is, yeah. If we can keep Canada together, I hope to see her as the next as a future prime minister. Maybe our first female prime minister. Wouldn't that be nice? Hey, Liberals, wouldn't it be nice to actually have a strong, smart woman who fights for Canada as a prime minister? Wow, that would be incredible. Seeing as your party just keeps booting them out. Mind you, there isn't very many strong women left in there. I think Jody Wilson-Raybould and the doctor were the only two left. So, yes, and Chavez, even though I didn't like her policies. Let's take a listen.
My first question is in regards to your What's Next post-election panel that you mentioned over the weekend. What would you say to those who criticize you for sort of entertaining the idea of Alberta independence as Canada faces a trade war and threats of annexation from the U.S.?
Well, I love Canada, and I want Canada to work. I've been on Team Canada from the beginning. It's part of the reason why I've been relentlessly going to the United States and trying to advocate for all of our industries, for all of Canada, in every venue I possibly can. But I'm also Premier of Alberta, and quite frankly, at some point, Canada has to start working for Alberta, and it's not right now. We have a number of policies that came in over the last 10 years that have been damaging to Alberta prosperity. It's been damaging to our freedom as a province. And if they persist, it is going to continue a dysfunctional relationship that harms Alberta. So I put forward the 9 major policies that I think have to be repealed after the next election. Unfortunately, the current Prime Minister, despite what he said to me privately when he was here, has now gone public saying he supports export taxes, he supports Bill C-69, he supports emissions caps. That is moving in the wrong direction. So we will get through this election. We'll see who ends up winning, and I will continue to advocate for those. And that's part of the reason why I will do a What's Next panel. We did that when when my predecessor came in to hear some of the concerns that Albertans had about how to repair the relationship with Canada at that time, and it'll be time for us to do it again.
Yeah. Okay. Just to follow up, one of the main issues you brought forward about a month ago was interprovincial trade barriers.
Mm-hmm.
Has there been any sort of progress on that so far? I know you said Alberta was open to signing, kind of free trade agreements with other provinces. Has there been any progress?
Alberta has always been a leader on getting rid of interprovincial trade barriers. I mean, just look at how we have the only free enterprise system for liquor as an example. We've got 36,000 products that are on our shelves in Alberta. Maybe slightly fewer at the moment since we're not ordering American products for the time being while we're in the middle of a tariff war. But all of our other provincial premiers, I'm challenging them to be as open as we are on that front. When we also had 27 different exemptions on industry when my predecessor came in, he immediately eliminated 21 of those. And then there were a couple of others that were added around hazardous waste and the cannabis industry. So I think only have about 8 exceptions. Others have dozens and dozens, so they've got a lot of work to do. Same with recognizing credentials of individuals trained in other provinces. There's only about 8 different professions that we have extra training for because we have a higher level of care that they're allowed to deliver. For instance, we allow dental hygienists to do anesthetics and sedation. And so those are the kind of things that we think are reasonable, but we're challenging the other provinces to do the same. I'm encouraged to see that Nova Scotia is putting forward a sweeping mutual recognition piece of legislation. I'd encourage other provinces to do the same. We're prepared to do unilateral recognition if we can't get mutual recognition, because that's how important we feel it is to be able to have that mobility. And maybe something that will make a difference to JBS is one of the big projects we're working on is being able to have truck transport across the country, not face different rules. So we want to be able to have a truck loaded up in Vancouver and then able to get across the entire province without having to worry about different weights and axles and widths and colors of ribbon for safety that is on the back. Like those are irritations for a trucking industry and creates barriers of transporting goods east-west. So that one is well underway to create mutual recognition on that one as well. Yeah.
Hello, thanks for taking my question. Anne-Marie Tricky with CBC Radio-Canada. So again, on this tariffs, of course, tomorrow is when we're expecting Trump to announce his tariffs. I just wanted to talk about your strategy about, speaking to American media, politicians, personalities. How do you see this as helping Team Canada approach as a whole? And do you think that this has an impact on Canada's ability to really have a united front with regards to these tariffs?
Yes. I mean, when we started off, it was agreed by all the premiers that we would work our contacts so that we would talk to every single individual elected member of office and incoming member of the administration, including influencers and podcasters, to do everything we possibly can to ward off tariffs, delay tariffs, or get them canceled altogether. And so I've just continued in that strategy, and I'm going to continue in that strategy. I would say that when my most recent trip to speak with Ben Shapiro, he is the second largest listened to podcaster in the United States. He's got an audience in all his platforms of 25 million. We had a very constructive conversation where I talked about the integration of our economies on everything from oil and gas in Alberta to critical minerals in British Columbia, Ontario, Quebec, and all of our provinces and territories. Cars from Ontario, uranium from Saskatchewan, and that to me is what the Team Canada approach is. Every single province has a vital, important relationship with the U.S. that has mutual benefit. And the next day, Mr. Shapiro spent a good deal of his podcast talking about why he's so opposed to tariffs. So those are the kind of things, those are the influencers that will have influence on the decision makers around the president. And from what I'm hearing, they still haven't settled on what it's going to look like tomorrow. So I think we had to do a full court press right to the last minute. We're going to keep on doing that.
Perfect. And just to follow up on that, you kind of touched on it, but so you're anticipating on continuing with this strategy,
yep,
despite, of course, there's a lot of uncertainty about it tomorrow, but if it goes forward, that's still going to be your main strategy?
Sure is. Yep. I mean, I have a number of different relationships that we've built because Alberta's had an office in the United States since 2005. We've had a representative there representing our government for a number of years. We've built great relationships across party lines, both Democrat and Republican. It has served us well. We would have been prepared if there had been a different approach, or if the Americans had gone Democrat as the approach that we have going Republican. And that's what you're supposed to do. That's what diplomacy is that you're supposed to talk to both sides of the aisle because you never know what the voters are going to do. And I think that perhaps that's why our strategy has been a bit more effective. We actually knew who to call, and we had relationships with people who are decision makers. And I think it's good for Canada that we do have that and that we're able to leverage those relationships and hopefully make a difference.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now, a lot of people out there aren't aware, but some of the strongest ties that Alberta have are with Democratic states. Alberta, especially Premier Smith, she has garnered so much support from both sides that the bill that the Democrats are trying to push through the House right now to make it illegal for the president to just on an executive order make tariffs against countries. Again, they're blowing it a little bit out of proportion. Democrats usually do that. But that is all because of Danielle Smith. Canada should be literally sending her birthday flowers today and thanking her for everything she has done, especially for the auto industry. She's fighting for you guys. The media is making it sound like she's all about Alberta. She's Alberta's premier, but she has done everything in her power to fight for Canada as a whole, from coast to coast.
And we'll take one more from the mic here, and then we'll move over to the phones.
All right. Hello, Premier Smith.
Hi.
Our latest CTV polling by Nano says that fewer than 25% of people on the prairies are against using oil and gas and other energy items to fight back against Donald Trump's tariffs. So why do you say that if Canada decided to use our resources to strike back at America, it would spark a unity crisis when it appears that the majority of Canadians would support such action?
Well, I think it's a garbage poll, frankly, and you can let your bosses know that, because what if we were to ask Albertans or Canadians this? Would you support export tariffs if it meant the U.S. would retaliate by shutting off Line 5 and leaving Ontario and Quebec without gasoline or aviation fuel at all? I think you'd get a different answer. I think people need to look at a map, see where Eastern Canada gets its oil and gas from, and realize that it's a very, very dangerous game to be talking about tariffing energy and to talk about turning the taps off. I think we saw that when it was attempted with electricity. The result was immediate. The Americans came forward with a 50% tariff on steel and aluminum, and it had to be walked back. So I don't even want to play with that fire on a cross-border trade worth $150 billion.
So all of the steel and aluminum out east, because I've said this earlier, we have steel and aluminum here in the prairies as well. We have it. It's not just like we as Canada have aluminum. We have all types of metal manufacturing plants all over Canada. It's not just specifically in Ontario and Quebec. And she's been fighting to try and litigate these tariffs. What Doug Ford did, well, watch my previous episodes. He cost Ontario a lot of future income because not only did he pee off Trump and the Republicans, he really peed off a lot of Democrats with that threat. So they're all looking at like relining to other plants to start to get away from buying Canadian electricity. And if our government decides to go above provincial powers and try to tariff oil and use that as some type of a power manipulation, they're going to shut Ontario and Quebec off. They have the ability to do it. And then you guys are screwed, especially because Quebec refuses to buy Western oil unless it goes down to the States and then is shipped up to them. For some reason, if an American's hands touch it, it's clean. This is the hypocrisy of the liberal bloc ideology. And 70% of people in Quebec are for pipelines. And I think you're going to see a heavy swing once all of this starts to come to fruition that, well, the bloc, I think, is already, they're going to lose a lot of seats. I think it's happening, especially since Legault just got out there and he had, we're not going to put in pipelines, whatever. That don't matter because other provinces and territories are looking at bypassing you. If they bypass you in the future, if there's ever a tariff war, you're done. You are completely left out of Canada. You are left out of your own gas industry. Done. Because you're so anti-Canadian, and you have been for so long. Canada has been, Alberta and Saskatchewan's power, the growth of the amount of people that are wanting to succeed aren't doing it as a spiteful thing against Canada. They're doing it because they've been oppressed for so long from Eastern Canada. Quebec has done it strictly as a power grab they've used to try and take an unequal proportion from Canada. It's the exact opposite. And you can thank Quebec media and mainstream media for this. It's absolutely disgusting. You reap what you sow. I hope this election shows that Quebecers aren't stupid. They're not stupid. I actually talked to a lot of them, and I've been garnering a lot more of a fan base, especially on some of my other social media outlets. They think a lot like most Canadians do. They're tired of the taxes. They're tired of the oppression. They're tired of the lies. They're really tired of the media, which is why they're seeking better outlets. And I like all you guys for coming by and joining me. I like sharing and subscribing. It's great because we can come together as a nation. We can come together for what we are, Canada. Instead of wanting to tear it apart because of media and bad politicians trying to pit us against each other, it's time to come together. And right now, the only party that's has the ability and so far the platform to do it is the Conservatives. It's the Conservatives, and that's just my opinion. If you have anything that you want to say, please message in the comments, or if you're on other social media platforms, you can message me there. I love hearing from everybody. That's what we're here for. It's a debate. It should be two-way, an understanding conversation between the two. It's amazing what we can learn when we have open minds and hearts. Let's just continue.
Okay, thank you. And then with the carbon tax gone, the biggest tax on fuel here now is the province's fuel tax. Now, there is a mechanism, of course, for fuel tax relief tied to the price of WTI. But would Alberta consider getting rid of its provincial fuel tax entirely to give drivers a break?
So remember, we have fuel taxes in place to pay for roads. This is a big road announcement, so we need to have the money to pay for it from somewhere. The federal government also has another fuel tax that they ostensibly use to pay for roads as well, and they have GST also. So what we were opposed to was the carbon tax, which was 17.6 cents a liter, just driving up the cost of everything that is transported every time you fill your tank, and we're glad to see it gone. We've been advocating against it. Our fuel tax relief program kicks in when WTI is over 90. So our idea is that if we're getting windfall revenues from the high price of oil, then we should make sure that we're rebating it back to consumers. We're not in that case right now. What I think we need to make sure is that all of the retailers pass on that savings to their customers. I've been told, it's a little far away, but I've been told in the Edmonton area there is one gas station that's down to $1.14 a liter. So I don't think I've seen those prices in some time, and that's part of the reason why we're pleased that finally the federal government succumbed to the immense pressure by our government, other provincial governments, the federal opposition leader, and have done the right thing and eliminated that tax.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to head over to the phones. Operator, could you put through our first caller, please?
It's amazing. She's always for the people, not for the bureaucrats. That's one of her best attributes, is that for her, she wants to listen to what the people have to say. Her job is to protect their freedom, their pocketbook. And at the same time, very weighed and measured, be able to allow for industry to grow. Industry grows, jobs are created, wealth grows within the people, and then making sure that at no point in time, the government in the middle is ripping both or either of them off. She's very good that way.
Your first question comes from the line of Pete Bell with Post Media. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Premier. I'm going to ask you the elephant in the room question, and the folks down there in the Brooks area will probably know what I'm going to ask if I'm saying it's the elephant in the room question. If Carney wins and he becomes the Prime Minister he seems to indicate he wants to be with his recent pronouncements, which basically are not taking your demand seriously. And if, as expected, many Albertans would be very happy with a fourth term of the Liberals, particularly if they're pursuing anti-Alberta policy, can you see a scenario where if Albertans desire it, the government of Alberta, not citizen-initiated, the government of Alberta, like the equalization referendum, the government of Alberta would put a secession referendum on a ballot?
No, I can't foresee that. We do have citizen-initiated referenda, and it will be up to Albertans to decide what kinds of questions that they want to put forward. I don't think we've seen any successful citizen-initiated referenda yet, but that's the mechanism for things like that. For my part, what I'm going to do is continue to advocate for whoever happens to be the Prime Minister to make good on the 9 things that we want changed. We want to see an end to emissions caps. We want to see an end to net zero power regs, net zero vehicles, net zero building codes. We want to make sure that we control our own environment for methane emissions. We want to make sure that we don't have a ban on tanker traffic off the West Coast, that we have control over our process to approve pipelines with an end to Bill C-69 and a couple of other things. Those are things I'm advocating for, and I will continue advocating for them after the election. I will give whoever happens to be in the chair 6 months to make good on trying to address some of those critical problems for Alberta. And then at the same time, I'll be going across Alberta on what I'm calling our What's Next panel to see what kind of feedback we get. But we can't stop trying to get the right policies in place. As I mentioned, we have a Prime Minister right now who says one thing in English, one thing in French, one thing in Eastern Canada, one thing in Western Canada, one thing to me, and then one thing to when he's asked by the media. So I don't actually know what this Prime Minister is going to do. I'm not encouraged by that flip-flopping so far, but we'll see what happens after this next election. But those are bottom line things. If you want to get pipelines built, if you want to get corridors established, if you want to open up markets, you have to get rid of all of the policies that are dampening investment in our country. And you can't have it both ways. So I'll continue pressing for it, and I hope there's a change of heart after the election.
Well, my supplementary is you during the Trudeau era, and even now in the very brief, and hopefully it will remain brief, Carney era, you have made many submissions and many requests of the Liberal government. And why would you rule out putting secession, not citizens, the government putting a secession referendum when that would be the attention grabber of all attention grabbers? That would be on the front page of the New York Times, the Washington Post, Fox News, BBC. It would be a global story if Alberta actually did that, as happened in Quebec very effectively. They never passed a secession referendum, but they had two of them, and boy, did that get the rest of Canada's attention. Why would you rule out a secession referendum for your government to put it on the ballot?
I got a mandate to try to fix Canada. I got a mandate to try to make Canada work. And that's what I've been working towards relentlessly over these last 2.5 years. As you know, we did put in place a process for citizen-initiated referenda, and I leave it to Albertans who may feel differently to put forward a petition campaign. But I think my job as an Albertan and as a Canadian is to try to put on the table the issues that are causing grave tension in our federation and to solve them. And I'm going to look at it on the positive side, because what I have observed is that it may be that the current prime minister doesn't get it, but all of the other premiers do. And we have consistently, for the last number of meetings, signed on to communiques talking about how we're going to build economic corridors. This last one, economic corridors with oil and gas and transmission lines, rail lines, and new highways and other infrastructure in those corridors. And so I believe there's goodwill on the part of the other premiers. The problem is, unless we solve those federal barriers, we're not, it's just words on paper. So I'm going to continue to use sort of that newfound sense of esprit de corps with my fellow premiers. We're going to do what we can after the election to make sure that we address those issues, and I'll keep an open mind. But so far, I'm dissatisfied with what I'm hearing out of the new prime minister. He doesn't seem to understand just how foundational these are if we're going to reset the relationship.
Thanks, Rick. We have time for a few more questions. We'll take a couple more from the phones before coming back to our mic for our last one. Operator, could you put through the next caller, please?
Your next question comes from the line of Jack Farrell with the Canadian Press. Please go ahead.
Hi, Premier. The Narwhal had an article last week about how the Alberta government was doing some, engagements about potentially killing our industrial carbon tax in Alberta and, the TIER program. I got told by Minister Scholl's office, that we are doing a review of TIER. I'm just kind of hoping that you can kind of give me the firm answer on, is Alberta planning to kill its industrial carbon tax?
The answer, it has to change. I think there's no question about it. We had to sign on to federal stringency requirements and escalation requirements that the industry keeps telling us are going to be incredibly damaging to investment, especially with the change of heart in the United States. So we have to figure out what that right level is, how the program should look. But those are very much active consultations right now. What I would say is we've had industrial pricing since 2007. And it has stimulated so much investment in new technologies. And I believe that technology is going to solve all of our emissions problems. So there will be perhaps a modification of what the current program looks like to make it work better. But we haven't settled on what that pathway is just yet.
And I guess to follow this up, and for the past month or 2 months now, kind of through your political life, you've always advocated for increasing oil production in Alberta, and as of late, you've been saying we want to double it here. And we all know that technology can't or hasn't kept up with the pace of production, and keeping emissions down. The technology isn't quite there yet to do it successfully. So how do you kind of foresee this future where if we do double production and we get more pipelines and oil production really ramps up, that we don't have the technology in place to kind of protect us from those obvious outfalls that we see?
Well, I beg to differ. I think the federal government just filed a report internationally that showed that we actually are seeing a decrease in emissions from oil and gas. And there's a lot of reasons for that. We've decarbonized, of course, on our electricity grid. We have also seen a decrease in methane emissions by 45% from 2005 levels. And we are using carbon capture, utilization, and storage technology at scale. In addition, I would point out that oil and gas have a lot of uses other than burning it. There's petrochemical industry. There's asphalt. So we have a large number of non-combustion and construction uses for the products that come out of the ground. I think that has to be factored in. But more importantly, we've seen that some of the proposals that companies are putting forward are for additional carbon capture, utilization, and storage, decarbonizing the production through low emissions technology, whether it's natural gas with carbon capture, or whether it's potential small modular nuclear or geothermal, or perhaps we build some transmission lines so we can get hydro across the country. Those are other aspects. And we also have a demonstration project in central Alberta for direct air capture as perhaps a way to finish the last mile. So I wouldn't rule out this industry. This industry started off thinking the only thing they wanted from a barrel of oil was kerosene. And now here we are today with 6,000 products that come from a barrel of oil. So I have every expectation that the industry is going to find the answer.
Thank you. And we'll take one more question from the phone.
Now, personally, I'm a grower. I have a greenhouse. It's funny that we're even discussing to try and take carbon out of the air when we need more of it. Personally, it's my opinion. I don't know how you guys feel. Let me know in the comments. But this whole carbon is an illusion. If you look if you dig deep and look at the actual scientists, real scientists, they're all against it. They're all against it. There are other things we could be doing if we really want to tackle this whole climate change, but all it takes is for the earth to pass gas once, and everything we've done is blown out the door, like what's happening in Iceland right now. They got another volcano that's erupting. There's more CO2 being injected in there. They say that it within 2 months of it spewing what it's spewing, pretty much everything we've tried to do to capture carbon has been eliminated. That's just the reality of it. So I'm not into the whole carbon capture thing. There are other more harmful oxides and dioxins that we should be looking at, but CO2 isn't one of them.
Phones operator, could you put through the next caller, please?
Your next question comes from the line of Chris Varco with Calgary Herald. Please go ahead.
Hi, Premier. This is a question I wanted to ask you about two issues which are kind of interconnected. One is the trade corridor discussion, and the other one is the tariffs. How would any new trade or energy corridors actually help Alberta during this time of tariffs? And separately but connected to it, what do you expect to see from the U.S. administration tomorrow when it comes to tariffs?
I'll finish with the last one first. It's hard to predict the U.S. president, and I don't really want to get ahead of myself because I don't want to you never want to be wrong. But my inclination from what I've heard from different different administration officials is that it looks like it's just going to be sectoral application for the most part. And then they talk about reciprocal tariffs. And so we don't have any tariffs on their oil and gas. So I'm assuming that means that they're not going to have tariffs on our oil and gas. I think for the bulk of our food production, with the exception of supply management, I think we also don't have tariffs. So I would expect that our food production should also be tariff-free. He's quite clearly concerned about the auto sector, pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, steel, aluminum, and timber and supply managed industries. So I'll be watching to see what that looks like there. But we've been making the argument that raw materials and intermediate goods should not be tariffed at all because those go into making value-added products. And I'm hopeful. That's what I'm hoping to see tomorrow. But we really just won't know until we see the result. They seem to be. I've been saying this from the beginning. They seem to be really irritated by national sales taxes. Because, of course, the Americans, although they have state and local sales taxes, they don't have a national sales tax. So if you read any of the work of the economists advising the president, it seems like that our GST, or harmonized sales tax, is what they really look at as a form of tariff. It isn't, but that's how they're looking at it. So that's That's maybe where it might end up falling, is if they're going to try to put a border adjustment tax in that's equivalent to that. That would be what I'll be looking for tomorrow.
And theoretically, she's right. It's not a tariff, but it is a tariff. It's also a tariff on Canadians. It's just another tax. It just drives up prices and harms work. And the whole supply management, I'm totally against supply management. It does nothing but stifle the freedom of hardworking citizens to have create competition. Without competition, you have price gouging, and you have a larger separation between the wealthy and the people that are working, and that's not a good thing. Like I said, it'd be nice if I could have a cow. I have the place for it. I've been wanting to get one, but it produces too much milk, and it's illegal for me to sell it, and that is a joke. If I could sell milk cheaper than the guy down the street can, the consumers will be buying the cheaper milk. What we need is good quality assurance programs to make sure that, obviously, somebody who's not taking care of their animals very well and selling milk that isn't good, that's something that I see the government having a say on. But to actually say that you can't do this because we're giving money to these guys, that is completely backwards thinking. That's socialist, and that stifles the economy. And like I said, hardworking citizens within that country don't have the ability to drive the prices down and make an income for themselves. It's a wealth distribution. It's strictly to help the rich. It's a control mechanism. I'm totally against anything where it's supplemented. It's got to stop. Has to stop, especially the milk industry. It's got to stop. And there's a lot to do with logging. And in certain provinces, it's actually destroyed the logging in those provinces. Then it's very easy for a trade partner like the United States to pick what's left of it apart. We have to eliminate that. Again, get into the environmental end, make sure that there's less wasted product, litigation and rules on certain areas for environmental protections. I'm all good for that. But you can't tell one person he can't do it and give money to another person to make more and pay less to his employees. That's a wrong system. It's a bad system.
And just to follow up, I wanted to ask you about how the energy corridors would help. I mean, we've been having discussions in this country for years about establishing economic and trade corridors, and it's come up again, obviously, on the campaign trail in the last few days. How do you think that these corridors would actually make a difference this time?
I can tell you how they'd make a difference in Alberta, because we have a number of different corridors we propose. Obviously, we've talked about Energy East, and we know what that pathway would look like. For anything to go through Quebec, I think we'd need to find a different route, and we'd need to make sure that the Bloc Québécois did not have the majority of seats in the next election, because they seem to be the spoiler, the one who's most outspoken against taking a true Team Canada approach. But we shouldn't be surprised. They want to break the country up. But
boom! I loved it when she said that. I rewound it 3-4 times and just listened to her say that again and again and again. This is a real Canadian, people. This is a real Canadian. Hopefully the person that commented on the previous video is now subscribing and watching these ones. These are the things that I think you have to pass to the people you were saying that are not voting for Pierre because of her. This is what Canada needs. We need unity. We need to first understand it's not just ethnically that we have differences culturally around Canada. People in Alberta are not the same as people in BC, and they're not the same as people on Atlantic Canada, and they're not the same as people in Northern Canada. People are all different depending on the environments in which they grow up in and which they live. And we need to be able to unite everybody together. These are the words of a prime minister. Boom. Drop the mic.
Aside from that, I would say that we have a number of different proposals that could potentially work. In Manitoba, you've probably seen that Premier Wab Kinew has announced the first gold mine in the province in 15 years, and in an additional investment in the Port of Churchill. So if we can get corridor, and we already have an economic corridors agreement that Minister Dreeshen signed with Saskatchewan and Manitoba, get to the Port of Churchill or one of the ports in the Bay, then with icebreakers made in British Columbia or Quebec or Nova Scotia, then...
And you see that? She even still includes Quebec in that icebreaker purchase and build off. This is what the mainstream doesn't let people know. This is why I really hope you guys support small independent media like myself and others out there. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, because this is what Canada needs to hear. They need to hear it right from the horse's mouth. They need to hear it right from the individual so that they can see, whoa, oh, well, that's not what I was told, or that's not what I believed. And of all the premiers out there, she don't lie. She speaks truth to power constantly. I've never seen her renege on anything. She is very concise. She's for the people of her province first, but she's trying her hardest to keep Canada together and to make Canada wealthy and successful. Kudos, Danielle.
We'd be able to offer that as an option year round. The other option we're looking at is, I've advocated for, along with my premier counterparts in Northwest Territories and Nunavut, is Grays Bay, which I think would be extraordinary to be able to have a northern port that would assist us with Arctic security and offer a faster pathway to get to Europe as well. And all of the critical minerals that would open up. So that's another major one. And then I think there's at least 3 or 4 projects that could potentially go to the West Coast. Either a brand new project similar to what we had approved already with Northern Gateway before the Liberals canceled it, or some kind of spur line from Trans Mountain. And I think that there's been some reporting, maybe you've done it yourself, about the 3 different potential options for spur lines from Trans Mountain. So when you look at those, if you could increase the pipeline egress in any or all of those by 2 million barrels a day, so that we can get more of our product to Europe, more of our product to Asia, and crowd out some of the less reliable partners around the world. I just think that's going to be a good way to demonstrate that we're supporting our allies and providing energy security. So 2 million barrels a day, that would be 50% more production. If we could solve our tariff dispute with the U.S., there's another 2 million barrels per day of pipeline proposals by 2030 to the U.S. So we could get to my goal of doubling our production, which I think would be very good for Albertans.
And we'll take one more question from the mic in the room here. Go ahead.
And that is pretty much all that's crucial to you. The rest is kind of a little bit of an interprovincial trade thing or a war going on, and it's a lot of NDP. It's NDP supporters, heavy left-wing supporters that are trying their best to just self-destruct Alberta for political power, like Nenshi, the idiot. This guy is a complete lunatic. I don't know if you know what he did to Calgary, but I tell you, I used to tour through there lots. I try not to go through there anymore. It's not the same city, and I know a lot of people that have fled from that city. Just the taxes, everything about it has gone just downhill. Nenshi is the guy's got problems. He's a power monger with absolutely no brains. He has no idea what the he really doesn't understand everyday Canadian life, let alone everyday Albertan life. That's my opinion. If you have anything different, let me know in the comments. I know it's a little bit of a long episode, but I'm just going to click through a couple of these. I thought these are kind of important to see. So this just came out here. Canadians permanently leaving hits the highest level since 1967. It's a surge. I'm just going to scroll down here to the graph. Check this out. It has exploded. When it looked like the Conservatives were going to win an election, if you look to the right-hand side of the graph, you'll see that all of a sudden it kind of came down, and that was also the COVID that had set in that stopped a lot of people from moving. And then right afterwards, when the election was held, and obviously the same party was in, it took right off. It took right off. 106,134 in 2024. This is Canada, people. And the worst thing is if the Liberals win a minority or a larger government, you're going to see a mass exodus. Companies, like I said, they're waiting on their tippy toes right now. We had a lot that were humming and hawing about coming in, and then when they were seeing the polls, which are all lies, they started stopping right away. And now everybody's just kind of waiting. If we can get a conservative government here and kind of clean up and hopefully expose a lot of the corruption, I think we can literally see a lot of this go back down to where it should be. Canada should, as a whole, we shouldn't be losing people. People should come and they should be happy. That's the Canada that I grew up in. It was happy. After we got rid of Trudeau, of course, the first one. Yeah, it became happy. There was a lot less division other than Quebec, but that's a different story. And then just a couple short little clips. I thought this was really good. This happens every year. A lot of people don't get a chance to see it, but just take a look at this. Ice heaves. The power of ice. And this is small. This is small. I'm hoping that I can, the Weather Network and other channels put out the larger ones. Some of the big ones are just, they push houses right off their foundations, which is sad. But yeah, it's intense, the power of ice. And there you go. Well, guys, I hope you all got to kind of take that all in. And if you know any of these people out there that are all anti-Danielle Smith because of all the hate media from our legacy, controlled propaganda arm of the government, to share this so that they have a chance to actually look at and hear Daniel speak and put truth to power and just put an end to all the lies, like just lies. I'm just hearing so much lies, and especially spreading, like I said, through the Liberals. It's absolutely disgusting. Like I said, if we really want to keep Canada together and become the wealthy nation that we should be, we need to get the word out. And I need every single person out there to help. That's how we do it. We work together, we work as Canadians. Until the next time, you've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal. I've been your host, alias Tagai. Stay informed.